Okay, I'm going to build the Contact Manager app that is a MVC application to manage a simple contact list. And so you could see kind of the home page is a list of your contacts. They have a email address, phone number, and a category. So this is going to be a one-to-one relationship. Each contact has a category that is a different table in the database. And so again, we're going to build an MVC app in ASP.NET Core. And so let's boot up Visual Studio and dive into this. And when you click on the links, it'll take you to the contact details where you can edit or delete those contacts. So let's go ahead and create a new project, MVC web app. Again, C# and web, you can find this in here. .NET Core MVC, and I'm just going to call this contact app. And keep all these defaults. So probably want to go ahead and start off with a contact model. And so you see first name, last name, phone, email, and category. And so a category model will have a category ID and a category name. If we kind of scroll down to some of these requirements, to read a little bit about, here are the requirements for the valid data: first name, last name, phone, email, and category ID. And so two models, the first model being a category and the second one being a contact. So maybe we go ahead and start with either one of them. So we have a category ID and a category name. Now we need to do some validation on this. So we need to add a using statement. And so to bring in these attributes or these properties for required, we're going to say using system component model data annotations. And that allows you to do things like required. Now I'm going to just statically set my categories in my seed data, so I'm going to seed my categories. I'm not going to be adding categories. I will be adding contacts. And we can set up a string to kind of be null out of the gate, and that's fine. And so there's our categories with our category IDs, and let's create now our contact model. And again, so when I go into here, my ID, you know, if you're doing this, there's a convention here where if you're following along, contact is the name of the class, so your primary key in the database has to have the ID suffix. So this will be a primary key for the contact table. And so let's now, we got first name and last name. So we'll do a property, prop, tab, string, first name, and again kind of set it to be null by default. We'll bring in our data annotations. So we could say that And if there's an error message, we do it like this. Please enter a first name, semicolon. Last name, don't forget your semicolon here. So do the same thing for last name. Please enter a last name. Do the same thing for phone number. And strings are nullable types by default, so you don't have to add the question mark to the data type. And what else was there? Email and a category ID. So one more for email. Please enter an email. And category ID. Now, foreign key for the category ID, and there's also a navigation property that brings in a type of category, and we have learned to mark this as validate never. So this category does not bring in any sort of validation messages when you're trying to add a new contact. They need a foreign key value, but they don't need like a full category object associated with it. So that's been the practice so far, that we bring in both a foreign key property and a navigation property for our relationships between the entities. What else is there? Okay, so we did that. So we're going to end up making a slug. So it talks about creating a slug with the contact's first and last name that can be added to a URL. So that's a requirement we need to have. I believe there's something to do with date and time. And that's, oops, jumped ahead to the wrong part there. So I will add a property, prop tab, date time is our data type, called date added. And no validation on this one, so it's not a required field. This will be automatically added when you create a new contact. So the application will set this. And with that, let's go to our seed data. Okay, well, before we do seed data, let's bring in the right tools. So let's go to our NuGet package manager to bring in the entity framework tools. So Microsoft. So I've got these kind of cached here. Microsoft Entity Framework Core Tools and SQL Server. So these are the two dependencies we'll bring in. Click on that. Install. Okay, green check mark. Let's clear that. And that was the tools. Now the SQL Server dependency, install. I accept. Green check mark. Okay. All right, we need to now build out our connection string. So after allowed host, I'm going to put a comma here. I'm going to create a connection string. And we will call our connection string contact connection string. Server equals. Now I like to actually copy my database name. So I'm going to open this window here for SQL Server Object Explorer. And I like to rename and just copy this. Copy local DB. And so I can paste that and kind of fix this here. There we go. And then I give a database name equal to contact database. Trusted connection is true, multiple sets of true. So we went ahead and made a connection string contact CS, setting it to my local DB instance of SQL Server. We're creating a database called contact DB and set the trusted connection to true, multiple active result sets of true. So this is kind of a normal connection string. And inside of program CS, we now have to use our connection string. So under add controllers with view, we add a line of code to use our connection string. Builder add DB context. Before we do that, we have to create our context file. Okay, this is going to tie our connection string to our context file. So back in models, we're going to create a class, add class, contact, context. Say that 3 times fast. Okay. We're going to be using Entity Framework here, so let's bring in Microsoft Entity Framework Core. And let's inherit from the DB context. And let's see. Here's our constructor for our class that brings in our contact context and should pass up that options variable up to the parent class, which is all you have to do here. Very boilerplate kind of code. We're going to have a contacts table and a categories table. Got an extra set of curlies that brought in. Okay. So now we bring in some seed data. So these are our 2 tables inside of our database. And let's bring in the method to seed so here is our seed data on model creating. We're going to seed our categories, and you could see category ID of 1 is family, friend, and work. Let's kind of pretty this up a little bit because it's pretty ugly. Okay, So you have to build the category table first because the contact table has a category ID. So this is not fully flushed out. This is not correct because our contact does not have a category ID. So just because you use these tools that I'm using, like Copilot, still some problems here. So I'll just put in some dummy data, and I'll say category ID of 1, which is family. So I'm just going to add a couple family members here, and I'll add 1 friend. So I'll add another contact. So here, comma, this will be contact ID of 2. So there's my second contact, and let's do a third contact, which is a friend, contact ID of 3. And the category, well, that's my category ID of 2. Considered friend, remove the comma for the last one. And this is going to be my seed data. So we've got 3 categories and 3 contacts with their foreign keys with their relationships between okay. And so now that we have a context file, we can tie the connection string into the context file inside of program CS. So let's go back, builder, services, and let's bring in the defaults and change what we need. And so probably we need a using statement to recognize.
Hey, Mr. G, did you see my message?
Okay, so my context, well, we have to add using statement up at the top to get that to be a recognized type. And we have to also bring in entity framework. So we're going to say entity framework core, that gets that recognized. And we have to say the name of my connection string. So you notice my connection string was defined in here. We called it contact CS. And so inside of here, the connection string is called contact CS. Now, at this point, we're ready to create a migration and get the database created. So Package Manager Console is the window you're looking for. Tools, Package Manager Console, if it's not there for you. And I'm going to add migration called initial DB creation. And see if I got any errors. Okay, created my migration file. And so let's go ahead and update database. Okay, let's troubleshoot this. Probably if I look in my connection string itself, it's saying it's having a hard time finding the database name. And so let me take a quicker look. Okay, I found my dilemma, and my dilemma was that I had a comma instead of a semicolon in my connection string. So by replacing that comma with a semicolon right here, we were able to update the database. And so you can now see if I ran that command again, update database, it now says done. I should have recorded it, but I didn't. So it did update my database. I should have a I believed it called it contact. Let me refresh. Let me see what my name of my database is here. Contact DB, yeah, contact DB. Contact DB. I was experimenting with different things, but my database is called Contact DB. If I look at Contact DB, so that's what I named it originally. It was just the semicolon versus comma thing. And if I look at my categories, there's my categories. And if I look at my contacts, we now have our contacts. And I didn't set a default to date time added. So just to keep that's fine. I could fix that, but let's keep moving forward. So we've got our database. Now, on the home page, I want to go ahead and display a table of my contacts. And so we got a little bootstrap table that's striped of some sort, a link to add contacts. And so let's go to our home controller and probably delete the stuff that's not necessary. Okay, we have our models brought in. We need to create an instance of our contact context. And so let's bring in a public home controller. Let's contact context CTX. Okay, now I need to define CTX, so context underscore CTX. So we have the instance field underscore CTX. So this is going to be where we actually run our queries against CTX. And so these are our link queries, I should say. And so now CTX dot and contacts. Okay, so because our contacts have a relationship with another table, we're going to include the category for each one of our contacts. And so this is that navigation property. And maybe we order by our contacts, maybe last name, and convert it into a list and store it in a variable, var contacts, and send that to the view. Okay, so this actually hits our database, kind of queries our database, orders the contacts by the last names, sends that out the front door to the view, which if I go into my views home index, we can now say that this is a list of contacts. The model is a list of contacts. Call this my contact list. And we need to, at this point, loop through and so there are these little HTML helpers where we could say loop through your model, and for each var item and model, display the first name. I'm not gonna take that. Well, let's just see what it does. Let's just take it because it's easy. And this is not phone, it's phone number. And the route ID would be the contact ID. Okay, so in here, in our table, let's add a bootstrap class, just simple table. In the table headings, we're just going to say, hey, the display name for the first name, so it should be a space in there, first space name, last space name. Let's see how that boots up. So that's the table heading to get the table headings, and then this is the actual table data. Okay, looking good. Sorting by our, what do we say, last name? Yeah. Okay, so now we need to make some changes here, because instead of having an edit link here, these are supposed to be clickable links to do edit. And there's supposed to be an add contact button up at the top. So we haven't used these little HTML helper tags, but what's nice about this in our table heading, well, it doesn't say first space name. The objective there would be to actually put not the column name in the database, but obviously a readable first name. And so it's because I never really configured a display for, so literally we could replace this line of code with first name, save it, hot reload, and there you go. So phone number becomes phone number. Simple enough. This edit, I'm going to cut that link, and in the first name, make this clickable. Wait a minute. Nope, undo. Okay, this is the table heading. Here, down here, the first is my table. This is my first name, so this needs to be a clickable anchor tag. And the helper tag was ASP route ID. One second here. Yeah, ASP route ID. Item contact ID. Okay. So this goes inside my anchor tag. Okay, so that should put the contact ID. Now I'm going to need to create a controller and a method to actually do the edit. And so if I'm thinking about, if I'm thinking ahead of the game, I got to finish off this anchor tag. This will be ASP controller, will be my contact controller. ASP action will be, an edit. Okay, so right now it takes me to /contact/edit/3, but I don't have that code. I don't have the contact controller or any of that up and running, but the link is there, and so that's kind of the same thing I'll do down here. Make my anchor tag the same. Okay, close off that tag. And now they're both clickable. Of course, they're not implemented. And so the next thing is a button, like an anchor tag to add a contact. And ASP controller, ASP action, add. Okay, so now we need to bring in that controller. So let's say controllers, add a controller. The convention here is contact controller. And let's make an add method. And this is a get. And let's return to the view. Okay, so now that's our home index. Now let's go into our views. We need to create a folder here for contact controller. Add a view, index, CSHTML. Oops, did that in the wrong spot, didn't I? Sure did. I need to add a folder. I just said I need to do that. Add folder, contact, and I'm going to copy this index view into my contact folder. Okay. View bag title, this will be add contact. I just want to check that my add contact view pulls up. No. Oh, I need an add CSHTML, that's right. So my convention there is wrong. That needs to be renamed to add CSHTML. So because my add method should return to add CSHTML, and go back. under contact, I might just need to rebuild this, so let me close it down. Views, contact, add CSHTML. That's what I need to do, right? Views, contact, add. Maybe because I didn't add it the correct way. Let's just delete this. Views, contact, add a view. Okay. Let's see if third time's a charm, or I'm not thinking of something correct. There it is, contact add. Now it says my contacts. Okay, it was just because I created it in the wrong folder. So if I go back home, click add, notice it does say add contact. So to add a contact, we need a form to post, form tag, ASP action is going to be the add. This is obviously going to post. This will be a class of button primary. Believe in Bootstrap. I think we were just looking at this. The class of form group is now deprecated in Bootstrap. And so I'm just going to use floating labels because these are pretty cool. So a div with the class of form-floating with these controls. So I'm just going to kind of take that as my template and type. I'm going to take my type of email off. Class of form control. The ID, this will be floating first name. And what we add here is an ASP4. We say, this needs to be a model of contact. Now that we have a strongly typed view, we can say first name. Do that there, and do that here. Okay, so now we just get this kind of behavior, which is cool. Whether you want that to go the full width of the screen or not is not the most important piece. Let's add a validation summary. You just say all. Put all of our error messages in a validation summary when we get there. So that's our first name. Let's copy that and do one for last name. Obviously the placeholder didn't do anything for us. I need to take that off. And change that to last name. Change this to last name. Oh, the placeholder did do something for us. It it just actually wasn't seen. So let's just do a placeholder that looks like that. Okay, cool. Let's do one for phone. Wait a minute. What comes in our model? Contact. First, last, phone. So first, last, we'll just say phone, number, okay, it's picking up on my pattern here. So there's my email. And we should need to, what we'll do is we'll load up, let's see, in our contact controller, we need to get some of our categories into view bags so we can display the different categories. And so we need to bring in our contacts, our context variable here, and our, yeah, there we go. So what's our data type on that? I'm forgetting my data type on the home controller for our context. Oh, it is, okay, the data type is just its type. Duh. Contact controller CTX and public. Okay, initialize our thing here. I'm gonna make sure that dependency injection. Yeah, that's okay. Getting back on track. So there's our context file, and so when we're hitting the add route, let's do view bag dot categories. There we go. We're able to hit our contacts, CTX. Okay, so underscore CTX. It's not picking that up. Let me, okay, maybe I need to bring in using models. There we go. Nope, that didn't fix it. 1 second. I see what I did wrong. For whatever reason, I said contract controller. I didn't make this my contact context. My data type was wrong. I just auto-filled and that got me. Contact context, and then now I should recognize categories. And you can order them if you like, but that loads up the view bag categories. Let's see what my error is. Then I have to change the type on that one as well. Do a build solution. Good deal. And so now we get to loop through our view bag. Okay, so here's add. And let's have a div. Sure, let's bring in our contact ID. Actually, no, that's not right. Back to what I was thinking, div. Select tag. Category ID. Form select. Okay, so now we're looping through viewbag.categories. Let's make sure that's what we called it. Viewbag.categories. Back to our add. And putting a category name inside of an option with the backing value of the category ID. That looks good. Let's see what breaks. Let's boot it, take it down, boot it back up. Okay, so we get our categories. Of course, we don't have this wired up yet to actually do anything when we click the add contact. First name, last name, phone number, email. Button type of submit. Okay, so where are we going? Where are we submitting to? We need to action add method of post. Now, this does say that add and edit should use the same view. Okay, so I'm realizing this as I went on. I forgot this requirement. So an easy solution to this is to rename our view. I'm just going to rename this to add edit. So as I get so much open, I'm going to close it all. I'm going to rename this and just do a little refactoring. Add edit. Of course, then on our home view, contact add edit, and if I go to my contact, this becomes renaming this add edit. And go back, refresh. Okay, so So now it takes me to add edit. And so we're going to be able to use this for editing as well as adding. Okay. So now public add edit. Ooh. It keeps wanting to fill all this in. Okay, so you pass, and this method is passing an entire contact in, and if contact ID is 0, so we're checking for the model state. If the contact ID is 0, then we're doing an add operation. Otherwise, we're doing an update operation, saving the changes, and redirecting to, and I'll refactor that to take me somewhere else. But nonetheless, we check for validation. We check for a contact ID. If there's no contact ID, we add that contact. And so this will be our HTTP post. And so it should come from the view. I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. Start with debugging. Make sure we hit our breakpoint when we go to add a contact. Add contact, add contact. Okay, and so it is still pointing at the add method, so that's not right. Let's go back to our view for add edit, and this becomes add edit. Add contact, add, we hit a breakpoint, contact is 0, so our validation should not be true. Load up our view bags. Let's continue and see if we get that validation message. There's our validation messages. That last one for category, we should be able to fix that. First number, the value blank is invalid. But nonetheless, sends us back to the view with our correct error messages. So after emails category, let me look at something here at my contact. This is fixed by marking, well, let's put this as required. Please select a, no, I actually not sure that that's going to be all that we need to do, but that's the first thing. Okay, add contact, add contact. Okay, so the value blank is still invalid. One more thing that I've seen is by marking this as nullable. Okay. Reboot up. Now it says please select a category. So by marking that nullable, we actually get that to match the error message. And Bob Gibson, and this is work, add contact. Okay, so error message, but that's just because it wasn't, it's trying to take me to an index view that doesn't exist. However, if I go back here, we see that Bob Gibson was added. So everything is working up until this line, where probably what I want to do is redirect elsewhere. Redirect to action. And so I got some overloads here. Action name. So we go to an action of a controller. So just go action controller. So I'll just redirect to the index of the home controller. So index method of the home controller. So in the event that that works, take us to the index of the home controller. Okay, so if I boot this up one more time and check out the edit operation or add operation, it's still trying to take me elsewhere. Index of contact. I thought I saved that change. Why did that not change? Oh. So here, add, and model state is valid. Here, okay, I just returned the wrong one. This needs to return me here. And the bottom return just needs to do that. So this one, in the event that it works, sends me to the home page. This one just sends me back to the add edit view. Let's see where. Okay, I just need to stop it and rerun it. Build solution, run it. Okay. Good. Okay, so now we're doing that. Let's go ahead and get, we need, obviously we got add working, we need edit working, we need deleting working, and we need to have that, like a details, I'm not sure, but we're getting there. Next up, why don't we go ahead and, we got add. What do we want to do next? Let's do edit, because we already have the method wired up for that. So again, we're using add. So right now it always says add contact. We can change that to be add or edit depending on the operation. Let's close everything, close all tabs, and on the home view, so these are our edit routes. Contact, we call this add edit. Add edit. And And so back in our contact controller, add edit. There's one without an ID. Okay. We can change this. I'll make these two methods. Say this will be the add method. Refactor this a little bit. Sorry for that. Okay. So when you go to add, it'll return to a view, add edit, and send in a new contact. And so back here, this action is add. Okay. So now this is my HTTP get public iAction result takes in an edit. So back here, this will just be my action will be edit, edit, and you send in your contact ID. And we hit our contacts, we find by ID, we load up our categories, and send that contact out to the view from hitting our database. And so in our view for add edit, let's see, because they've got those, it's a strongly typed model already. So let's kind of back out, go home, and click Blake Boyer. He's a friend. Jerry Gudmestead is family. And so our edit is on the way. Now, obviously, this needs to be an edit button instead of an add button. And so this button needs to be dynamic, as well as this title needs to be dynamic. So we'll fix that next. So maybe loading up here, when we click edit, we're going to create a view bag.action is edit. And then here, we could set the title to view bag action. Now, of course, on the add, we also need to do view bag action is add. And then we can write a simple if-else statement here that says if view bag is edit, we do one thing, else we do something else. So we show the button to add a contact. So our form is going to add edit. Actually, maybe we don't. Maybe we just show the same button regardless. I'm sorry. I don't think we need that if else. Okay. So here's our button regardless. Let's see where we're at. add contact working. Oh, I need that button to say something different depending on the action. We'll just have it say save. Okay, got to clean that up because we just ran an add operation here because we weren't saving the ID. So I do want to save that input type is hidden ASP4. And this is our contact ID. Of course, we need to send that contact ID when we post add edit. That ID needs to be sent over call this an int ID. And then this just says contact ID. Oh, that's not going to work. Let me bring that back. Let me think of this. Actually, I think I might have it right as is. So let's debug. Okay, so the operation that's kind of currently buggy, well, it was buggy, was that when I were to go to edit, it would do an add operation. So if I go to edit Blake Boyer and change him to work, click save, it didn't have a contact ID, but now he does. Okay, so now it should do perfect, an update operation. And Blake Boyer is now set to work. Okay, so all I really needed to do was bring in that contact ID on the form to store that contact ID so that we sent that back to our controller. So doing good there. Okay. Another thing that I want to do before we add is give our contact a date added to date time now. So today being the date that they were added to the database. Okay. And so now we have add working. We have edit working. Again, just test it one more time. If I sometimes it just needs to be shut down. And go back. Let me say Bob Gibson 3, Bob Gibson 31. Okay, so add seems to be working. Edit, I'm just gonna clean this up with delete next because I got a lot of silliness going on here. So we can delete next. And so Let's write a method to get a delete. Okay, and that just loads up a contact by its ID, sends it out the front door. And so let me create a view under contact called delete, CSHTML. I don't need that layout. Okay. So let's see. If I click a delete button, I probably need to send it to that contact delete. Let's close edit. We might come back to that. Let's see where my delete button is right here. Delete, sending in the contact. Let's ASP controller. Contact controller. So if I go contact delete 2, contact delete 1, contact delete, it does say delete, so we're getting to the right view. So here's my delete view. Let's make it a model. Are you sure you want to delete at model dot? Are you sure you want to delete? Button, ASP action. Do a little form tag here. ASP action, delete, method, post. A little red button that says delete. Okay, so we need to write that post method on our contact controller. So there's a get. So there's a post. Okay, removes our contact, saves changes, redirection to action home. We're getting somewhere. Okay. Bob Gibson 31. Delete. Are you sure? Delete. Okay, 1 second. So reading this error message, it says ensure the database is configured to generate values for this property. And so, this is a contact, this Bob Gibson. So if I go to my contacts and view the data, so it does have contact ID being auto-generated here. That's what I would expect. Oh, let me, on my delete, let me save, no, I should have the contact. Now, one thing here, because you have a contact, you should have a contact ID, but I think that's actually what's causing this. We need to go ahead and store the contact ID. Okay, and so that will explicitly store that. Let's go ahead and reboot. Bob Gibson 31, edit, delete, delete. Okay, now he's gone. Delete, 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 delete. Okay, and our contacts are going away. Then last but not least is details. And so if I go to add Bob, now Bob Gibson should have a Bob Gibson 25. Now I should have a date and time. Of today. When I go to Bob Gibson 25, he should have a date and time value, because that's really the only thing that's not being displayed here. Back to the requirements. When I look at a details page, here you could see the date added. So that's the one piece of information that the details would give us, is this date added column. And we got to get a slug working, and then we'll be done. And I got to make sure that my titles are saying add and edit. So a few more things, just working our way through, going fast, but let's go to details. Contact details 2. So delete contact details. Okay, takes in an ID, finds by the ID, sends it out to the view. So let's make a details view. Add a view. Contact details, and the model is a contact. And what we want is a table. And table striped. Glance here. Okay. No, they're not traditional table headings, so we just have table rows. This is a little different. Each table row has a table heading. And display for the model's first name, last name, email, phone number. Of course, we need a category. Let's just see how this works so far. Home details 3. This local page cannot be found. Oh, it says home details 3. The correct path is contact details 3. So I need an ASP controller on my home view to go to my contact controller. All right, Blake Boyer, so far so good. Now I gotta make sure when I'm sending that when I'm doing that find, I need to include the category. And so I might rewrite this link query to get my contact selected a little differently, because when I'm just doing a find, I'm not able to add an include. So let me go to my include. There we go. Write this link query a little bit different. We'll hit link queries in more details, but we're searching our contacts, including the category. First or default, the contact ID equals the ID. Okay, so now we have the category on our contact, which allows us to do another table row, category model dot contact dot not model dot contact, category name. Allows us to navigate that property, display that. Okay, so we got the category working there, and date added. One more to go. And this one might have a certain look to it. So model dot date added to short date string. See if that broke it. Okay, we could just change this to at model instead of using that HTML display for dot date added to short date string. Try that. Okay, at least gives us the date. Now that was our seed data, which we didn't set up actual, but that would be today. So our seed data is not, doesn't have a good date added field, but the date added today does. So you could go back to the seed data and set up a default, right? You go back to your model and set the default value to today, and you should be good there. Okay, getting somewhere here. Details, edit, add, delete. Here I want to make that dynamic where right now if I click edit, it does say edit. If I click add, it says add. Almost done. We're just going to get that slug going. And So there's a couple parts to that to get that working. And it starts with your model. And so the requirements are to show on the edit, you put the person's name separated by hyphens up in the URL. And so right now, we don't have that. Right now, when we click edit, it just says /3. So I need to close it all. And in my model, contact, we're going to add a property for a slug. And say if there's a first name, replace, this is looking good, the spaces with a hyphen, lowercase it, plus a hyphen, plus if there's a last name, replace the spaces with the hyphen to lower. So we add this slug property on our model. We shouldn't need to update the database with this. This is referred to as a read-only property. Then in our home controllers view, let's open that up. Home controller view. We need to add the contact slug into the route slug. So we'll just start with details. So here's my details link. And we say ASP route slug at item.slug. And then we need to change our program CS, our default routing, to include an optional slug. Optional by these curly braces. So after the ID, which is optional, you add an optional slug here. And that should get that up in the details of our contacts. So if I go home, there's Blake Boyer. Good deal. And of course, then we need that on the edit as well, which our edit was up here. ASP route slug at item.slug. Add that to both of our edit. And now our edits have our slug as well. Okay, that kind of concludes our contact manager. Let me double check the requirements, and if it's all done, we'll stop it here. There was one last requirement. Make the app use lowercase with trailing slashes. And so this is going to be done in program CS. And builder services add routing options, arrow. There we go. All right, that was the last piece. All the requirements should be good to go.